a knife. 17 times. Blood pooling across white marble. September 28th, 2023. Dubai Marina. 2:47 p.m. A trembling hand reaches for a phone. A 34-year-old mother dials emergency services, but when the operator answers, she can't speak. Only ragged breathing. The sound of something dripping. Behind her, a body. A 23-year-old man. Dead. Beside him, a laptop still glowing. A folder labeled Insurance. 47 files. Explicit photos. Videos. An automated email scheduled to send in 3 hours. Addressed to her husband, her children's school, her family back home. The police arrive. They see the wounds. They see her search history. Fatal knife wounds diagram. They see her passport, stamped with another person's name, not hers, her husband's. In the interrogation room, she says 5 words that change everything. You don't understand what he was going to take from me. This is the story of a housewife, a predator, and a murder that began long before anyone picked up a knife. Because some traps don't have exits, only explosions.
Welcome to True Crime Story Files. Real people, real crimes, real consequences, because every story matters. Subscribe now, turn on the bell, and step inside the world where truth meets tragedy.
To understand what happened on September 28th, you need to understand what came before it. Not just the affair, not just the blackmail, but the cage. Hiraya Bassa arrived in Dubai 7 years earlier with a promise. Her husband, Sami al-Zahari, an Emirati businessman, had married her in Manila after a 6-month courtship. He'd seemed kind, generous. He'd promised her a good life. What he didn't mention was the sponsorship system. In the United Arab Emirates, foreign nationals cannot live or work without a sponsor. For married women, that sponsor is almost always their husband. He holds your residency visa. He holds your legal right to exist in the country. And in Hiraya's case, he held something else, her passport. It sat in a locked safe in their bedroom. She didn't know the combination. Every month, Sami handed her an allowance envelope, 1,500 dirhams, about $400, for groceries, household supplies, anything she needed. When she asked for more to send money home to her family in Cavite, he'd look up from his phone with that expression she'd learned to recognize. 1,500 dirhams is enough. Why do you need more? It wasn't a question. It was a reminder. His mother, Latifa, visited every Tuesday afternoon for tea. She'd inspect the apartment with the precision of a general reviewing troops, run her finger along the kitchen counter, checking for dust. Open the refrigerator to see what Hiraya had prepared for dinner, comment on her appearance. You've gained weight. Girls from your country would kill for this life. The implication was clear. Be grateful. Be smaller. Be quiet. Hiraya tried to research her options. Late at night, while Sami slept and the children were in bed, she'd search on her phone. Divorce foreign wife UAE. Annulment Dubai. Cancel spousal visa. Every result came back with the same answer. Requires sponsor permission. She was 34 years old. She had 2 children, Amira, 6, and Zain, 4. And she had less legal autonomy than she'd had as a teenager in Manila. The apartment smelled like Clorox and Sampaguita air freshener. The scent of erasing yourself daily. One Tuesday morning at 6 a.m., Hiraya met her friend Rosa at the building's loading dock. Rosa was 52, a domestic worker who'd been in Dubai for 19 years. She worked for a family on the 14th floor. They gathered there sometimes, 4 or 5 Filipina women who worked in the building, smoking Marlboro Lights and speaking in rapid Tagalog, where their employers couldn't hear them. Rosa pulled Hiraya aside that morning. She'd noticed something in her face, the exhaustion that goes deeper than lack of sleep. Mag-ingat ka, Hiraya. Dito, hindi tayo asawa. Ari-ari lang tayo. Be careful. Here, we're not wives. We're property. Then May arrived, and with it, Declan Castellano. He lived in apartment 1809, 2 floors above. 23 years old, British, worked as a freelance photographer. Hiraya had seen him around the building. Tall, dark hair, always carrying camera equipment. He seemed polite enough, quiet. On a Wednesday afternoon, Hiraya took Amira and Zayn to the pool. Amira was splashing near the edge when she accidentally kicked water onto a laptop sitting on the neighboring lounge chair. Hiraya's heart stopped. She recognized the laptop's owner immediately. I'm so sorry, she said, rushing over, pulling Amira back. She didn't mean to. I'll pay for any damage. Declan looked up from his book and laughed. Actually, laughed. It's waterproof, no worries. He closed the laptop, set it aside, and looked at her. Really looked at her. Not the way Sammy looked at her, with irritation or indifference. Not the way Latifa looked at her, with judgment, but like he was seeing an actual person. You have incredible bone structure. Has anyone ever told you that? No one had ever told her that. Over the next 2 weeks, they ran into each other more frequently, in the lobby, at the mailboxes. He'd make conversation, show her photos from his portfolio, images of the invisible Dubai, Pakistani laborers on construction sites, domestic workers on their day off, the loneliness inside glass towers. Everyone here performs wealth, he said one evening. Nobody's actually happy. She found herself looking forward to these encounters, feeling seen in a way she hadn't felt in years. Then June 12th arrived. That morning, Sammy left for a 10-day business trip to Abu Dhabi. He kissed the children goodbye. Didn't kiss her. 2 hours later, Hiraya's sister called from Manila. Their mother had collapsed. Kidney failure. She needed surgery. Cost $8,000. Hiraya opened her allowance envelope. $340. She called Sammy. He answered on the 5th ring, irritated. I'll send money when I return. Don't bother me with this now. The line went dead. Hiraya sat on the bathroom floor, towel pressed to her mouth so the children wouldn't hear her crying. Her mother was dying. She had no money, no passport, no ability to leave the country, even if she could afford the flight. She was a ghost, a wife without agency, a daughter who couldn't save her own mother. That afternoon, she took the children to the pool because she needed to be somewhere that felt less like a tomb. Amira and Zayn played in the shallow end. Hiraya sat on a lounge chair, sunglasses hiding her swollen eyes. Declan appeared beside her 10 minutes later. Didn't say anything at first, just sat. Finally, quietly, want to talk about it? And something inside her broke. She told him everything. The sponsorship system. Her passport locked in a safe she couldn't access. Her mother dying while she sat trapped in a luxury apartment she couldn't leave. 7 years of slowly disappearing. Declan listened. Didn't interrupt. Didn't offer empty platitudes. When she finished, he said 5 words that changed everything. You're not invisible to me. 3 days later, June 15th, she went to his apartment. It smelled like dark roast coffee and expensive cologne. He showed her his studio setup, explained his work, then asked if he could photograph her. Just portraits, nothing else. She said yes. He took maybe 20 photos, then showed her the images on his camera screen. She stared at them, barely recognizing herself. The woman in those photos looked alive, present, beautiful. "This is who you really are," he said. "Not the ghost in that apartment." When he kissed her, she didn't pull away. She was drowning. He felt like oxygen. Most people watching this will judge what comes next. They'll see the affair and stop there. But if you've ever felt trapped in a situation where every door is locked, where asking for help means losing everything, then you already understand this story is about something deeper. Subscribe if you want to see where this goes, because what happens when all your choices lead to destruction isn't always what you expect. What Hiraya didn't know, Declan's phone already held 247 photos of her, taken over 3 weeks, by the pool, in the lobby, through her apartment window. He'd been watching long before she ever noticed him. For 8 weeks, Hiraya Basa felt alive for the first time in 7 years. They met in stolen moments, during Sami's business trips, during Latifa's afternoon prayer times when she knew her mother-in-law wouldn't arrive unannounced, during the children's swimming lessons at the community center 3 blocks away. Declan asked her questions no one had asked in years, about her childhood in Cavite, growing up near the ocean, about what she'd wanted to be before marriage, before children, before Dubai. He introduced her to Filipino cinema, directors like Lav Diaz and Brillante Mendoza, films she'd never had time to watch. He made her feel intelligent, like her thoughts mattered. The physical intimacy was different too, not just the act itself, but the attention. He asked what she wanted, paid attention to her responses, made her feel desirable instead of dutiful. After 7 years of Sami's mechanical routine, it felt like rediscovering her own body. But by mid-July, small things started shifting. July 18th, they were in his apartment, afternoon light filtering through the blinds. Afterward, he reached for his camera, started taking photos of her, intimate ones. She was uncomfortable, but didn't want to seem uptight. When she asked him to delete them, he smiled. "They're just for us. Don't you trust me?" The way he said it made her feel like she was being unreasonable. So she let it go. July 29th. She didn't see his text message for 2 hours because Amira had fallen at the playground and needed her knee bandaged. When she finally responded, his reply came fast and sharp. "Where were you? Who were you talking to?" Not concern, accusation. She explained about Amira. He apologized, said he'd been worried. But something about the exchange left her uneasy. The way he'd assumed she was talking to someone else, the possessiveness underneath the apology. August 3rd. They were having coffee in his apartment when he touched her face, studying her features. "You're not like other Filipinas. You're educated, classy." She didn't know how to respond. What did he mean by other Filipinas? Women like Rosa, who cleaned houses, women who worked as nannies and sent money home? She was one of those women, just with a different title. August 11th. He mentioned his ex-girlfriend in passing. Priya, Indian woman, 10 years older than him. She got too clingy, ruined everything. Hiraya asked what he meant by clingy. He waved it off, said Priya couldn't accept when things ended, got emotional, made scenes. The conversation made Hiraya's stomach tighten. She wondered what Priya's version of the story would sound like. August 15th. Rosa cornered her in the laundry room. She'd seen Hiraya coming back from Declan's floor, seen the way she tried to make herself invisible in the elevator. Rosa's expression was hard, worried. "Huwag kang magpakagago, Hiraya. Binabata ka lang yan. Don't be a fool. He's just playing with you." Hiraya tried to defend him, said Rosa didn't understand, that Declan was different, that he actually saw her. Rosa shook her head. She'd been in Dubai long enough to recognize patterns. "I've seen boys like that before. They like us, because they think we're desperate. And when they're done, they move on. Be careful. But Hiraya didn't listen. She couldn't, because going back to her life without those stolen hours felt impossible. The affair was the only thing making her feel human. Still, things began to change. The camera shutter, that clicking sound that once meant being seen, being admired, started feeling different, like being documented, cataloged. She'd notice him taking photos when she wasn't paying attention, quick shots on his phone. She'd ask him to stop, and he'd laugh it off. "You're beautiful. I can't help it." But it didn't feel like a compliment anymore. By late August, Hiraya started feeling trapped in a different way, not by Sammy's control, but by Declan's attention. The constant texts, the irritation when she couldn't respond fast enough, the subtle comments that made her feel like she was failing some test she didn't know she was taking. She thought about ending it, going back to her numb existence. At least that life was predictable. But then she'd see him, and he'd be sweet again, attentive, apologetic if he'd been short with her, and she'd convince herself she was overreacting, that every relationship had rough patches, that this was just what intimacy felt like when you weren't used to it. What Hiraya didn't know, every photo Declan took, every intimate moment he captured, had already been organized into a folder on his laptop. The folder had a name: Insurance. August 28th, 2023. Hiraya made a decision. She met Declan at his apartment and told him it was over. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. "I have children. I can't risk this anymore." For a moment, he just stared at her. Then his face changed. The warmth disappeared. Something colder took its place. "You don't get to just walk away. I'm not some toy you use when you're lonely." His voice was different, sharp. She'd never heard him sound like that before. She left quickly, her heart pounding. September 3rd. She blocked his number, started avoiding the pool, took the service elevator instead of the main one, told herself it would blow over, that he'd move on. She was wrong. September 6th, 11 p.m. She was in the kitchen cleaning up after dinner when someone pounded on the door. Hard, insistent. Sammy was in the living room watching television. The children were asleep. Hiraya looked through the peephole. Declan, swaying slightly, his eyes unfocused. She opened the door just enough to squeeze through into the hallway, pulling it shut behind her. The smell of whiskey hit her immediately. "What are you doing here?" He leaned against the wall, studying her with an expression she couldn't read. "Maybe your husband should know what his wife does when he's out fucking his secretary." Her blood went cold. "Declan, please. I have photos, Hiraya. Videos. Your face is very clear in all of them." He pulled out his phone, started scrolling, turned the screen toward her. There she was, in his bed, in positions she'd never wanted photographed, moments she thought were private. "You think you can just use me and throw me away? You think I'm that stupid?" She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. "What do you want?" He smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. "I want things back the way they were. You and me. No more games." Then he walked away, leaving her standing in the hallway, her entire world collapsing. September 8th. Rosa found Hiraya in the loading dock stairwell at dawn. She was sitting on the concrete steps, eyes swollen from crying. Rosa sat down beside her, lit a cigarette, and waited. Finally, Hiraya told her everything. The affair, the photos, the threats, the impossibility of her situation. Rosa listened without interrupting. When Hiraya finished, Rosa was quiet for a long time. Then she said something in Tagalog. "May alam ako tungkol sa kanya." "I know something about him." Rosa pulled out her phone, Opened Reddit. Showed Hiraya an account. The username, Dubai/filmmaker23. One of the other girls showed me this last month. She recognized some of the locations. Hiraya stared at the screen, post after post, all in the same subreddit. Gap relationships. A post from March 2023. Successfully seduced another one. MILF, Indian, married. They're so easy when they're lonely. Tip. Act sensitive. Ask about their culture. Take artsy photos. Works every time. Update. She got clingy. Had to show her the photos to get her to back off. Never fuck with a man who owns the receipts. Hiraya's hand started shaking. Another post. August 2023. New target acquired. Filipina this time. Early 30s. Same playbook. These older immigrant wives are basically asking for it. The date. August. Right when things between them were getting serious. Rosa scrolled to the comments. There were photos. Faces blurred, but Hiraya could see enough. Locations she recognized. One showed a woman in what looked like the pool area. Rosa pointed. That's Priya. She worked for a family in Tower C. Left suddenly last year. Told everyone she was going back to Mumbai. Another photo. Different woman. Darker skin. Moroccan, Rosa said. From Tower A. Went back to Rabat with no explanation. Hiraya read through the posts. The pattern was identical. Every time. Act sensitive. Ask about their culture. Take photos. Get them attached. And when they tried to leave, show them what he had. She scrolled back to earlier posts. Years of this. Different women. Same strategy. The words on the screen made her stomach turn. These older immigrant wives are basically asking for it. She wasn't special. She wasn't seen. She wasn't alive. She was a mark. The entire thing. The kindness. The attention. The way he made her feel visible. It was a script. One he'd performed before. With women just like her. Women who couldn't go to the police because they'd be charged with adultery. Women whose husbands controlled their visas. Women who had everything to lose and nothing to gain by speaking up. He'd chosen her because she was vulnerable, because she was trapped, because he knew she had no recourse. Rosa put her arm around Hiraya's shoulders. He's done this before, and he'll do it again, because he can. If you're still here watching, you already understand something most people don't. This story isn't black and white. Victims make mistakes. Killers aren't born monsters. Sometimes the worst crimes happen in the space between desperation and power. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. Because this community understands what happens when the system protects predators and punishes survivors. Hiraya had a choice. Let Declan destroy her life or find another way out. But what she didn't understand yet was that the system had already made that choice for her. In Dubai, women like her don't have choices. They have consequences. And time was running out. September 10th, 2023. 7:42 a.m. Hiraya was making breakfast for the children when her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. She opened it. An explicit photo. Her face clearly visible. Below it, a message. What would Sammy think? What would Latifa show the family WhatsApp? She barely made it to the kitchen sink before vomiting. The children were eating cereal at the table. Amira asked if she was okay. Hiraya wiped her mouth, forced a smile, said she was fine. Just feeling a bit sick. That afternoon, while the children napped, she tried begging. Sent him messages. Please, I'll do anything. Just delete the photos. He responded with a laughing emoji. September 12th. Rosa helped her borrow money from other Filipino workers in the building. $5,000. It took 3 days to collect. Women who cleaned houses, watched children, sent most of their earnings home. They gave what they could. Hiraya met Declan in the parking garage, handed him an envelope full of cash. Her hands were shaking. "Please, take it. Just delete everything." He opened the envelope, counted the bills, then looked at her with something like amusement. "I don't want money." He handed the envelope back and walked away. September 13th. Desperation made her reckless. She sent him a message threatening to go to the police. His response came within minutes. "You'll go to prison for adultery, not me. I'm British. You're you." 3 words that said everything. The power imbalance, the protection his passport gave him, the vulnerability hers created. Under UAE law, adultery is a criminal offense, punishable by imprisonment, deportation, or both. The law applies to both parties, but enforcement is uneven. Foreign nationals from certain countries, particularly Western ones, often face lesser consequences. Women, especially those from Southeast Asia or other developing nations, typically face harsher penalties. Declan knew this. He'd lived in Dubai long enough to understand how the system worked, who it protected, who it punished. September 15th. Hiraya made one last attempt. She waited until the children were in bed, walked into the living room where Sammy sat scrolling through his phone. She stood there for a moment, trying to find the words. Finally, she just said it. "I need to tell you something. I made a mistake. There's a man in the building who has photos of me. He's threatening to send them to your family." Sammy didn't look up from his phone. Didn't even pause scrolling. "Hiraya, I don't care who you fuck, as long as you're discreet. But if you embarrass me publicly, if my family finds out, I will divorce you and keep the children. Understand?" His voice was flat, matter of fact, like he was discussing a household expense. The floor dropped out from under her. He wasn't angry. He wasn't hurt. He didn't care about the affair. He cared about appearances, and if those appearances were threatened, he would destroy her without hesitation. She stood there, a high-pitched ringing filling her ears. The sound of realizing you're completely alone. That the person who's supposed to protect you sees you as a liability, an inconvenience, something to be managed. September 18th. Hiraya saw a flyer at the Filipino Community Center. A British lawyer named James Whitmore was giving a talk on legal rights for sponsored spouses in the UAE. Free consultation afterward. She attended, sat in the back row, listened to him explain legal remedies, paths forward, options she hadn't known existed. When the talk ended, people lined up to speak with him. Hiraya stood up, started moving toward the line. Then she saw them. 3 women from the mosque Sami's family attended, sitting near the front. They'd seen her. They were looking at her. If she approached the lawyer now, they'd tell Latifa. Latifa would tell Sammy. Sammy would know she was seeking help, trying to find a way out, and he would move first. File for divorce, take custody of the children before she could act. She turned around, left the community center, walked back to her car, and sat there for 20 minutes. Hands gripping the steering wheel. Every door was closed, every path blocked. September 19th, 11:47 p.m. Hiraya's phone screen glowed in the darkness of her bedroom. Sammy was asleep beside her. She typed into the search bar, "Fatal knife wounds diagram, September 20th, 2:13 a.m. Another search. How much blood from chest wound?" September 22nd, 9:34 p.m. While the children watched cartoons in the living room. Can surveillance cameras see kitchen windows? She wasn't panicking anymore. Panic was frantic, unfocused. This was different. This was planning. September 24th. Morning. The kitchen was quiet. Sammy had already left for work. Children still asleep. Hiraya stood in front of the knife block, wrapped her hand around one handle, pulled, 8 inches, German steel, a Wusthof chef's knife, wedding gift from Latifa. She'd used it 1,000 times, to chop vegetables, slice meat, prepare meals for a family that didn't see her. She tested the weight in her hand, felt the balance, put it back. 4 days left until everything would change. September 20th, Hiraya changed her phone number, deleted her Facebook account, her Instagram, everything. She went to building security and showed them a photo of Declan, told them he'd been harassing her, asked them to deny him entry to her floor. The security guard nodded, made a note, said he'd inform the other shifts. For 3 days, nothing happened. No messages, no calls, no knocks on her door. The silence was so complete, it felt unreal. She started wondering if maybe he'd given up, moved on to someone else. Maybe the Reddit posts were just fantasies. Maybe he wasn't actually as dangerous as she'd thought. Maybe she could breathe again. September 23rd, 11:30 a.m. A package arrived. The building receptionist called up to her apartment, said there was a delivery. Hiraya went downstairs to collect it. Small padded envelope. No return address. Her name written in handwriting she recognized. Her stomach tightened. She took it back upstairs. Waited until the children were occupied with their tablets. Sat at the kitchen table and opened it. Inside, a USB drive and a handwritten note on plain white paper. Did you really think it would be that easy? I made backups, cloud storage, copies sent to people you don't even know about. You can't escape this, Hiraya. You can only choose, cooperate or watch everything burn. Thursday, 2 p.m. Your place. Be ready. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the paper. She looked at the USB drive. Small, black, ordinary. She knew she shouldn't plug it in, knew it would only make things worse to see what was on it. She plugged it in anyway. The drive opened automatically. One folder, 47 files, every intimate moment, every vulnerable second, all organized, labeled, dated. There was also a document. She clicked it open. An email template. Already written. Already addressed. To Sami al-Zahari, Latifa al-Zahari, Elena Bassa, her sister in Manila. Subject: Information regarding Hiraya al-Zahari. The email body was clinical, detailed. Attached were previews of the photos, not the explicit ones, but enough to destroy everything. At the bottom of the document, an embedded application, a countdown timer. Scheduled send. September 28th, 2023, 5:00. Below it, a message. This email sends automatically unless I cancel it in person. See you Thursday. D. Hiraya stared at the screen. September 23rd, 5 days until the 28th. Thursday was the 28th. He'd be at her apartment at 2 p.m. The email would send at 5 p.m., a 3-hour window. He was giving her time to cooperate, to submit, to become whatever he wanted her to be. And if she refused, if she tried to lock him out again, the timer would run out. The email would send. Her life would end. Not literally, but every version of her life that mattered. Her marriage, her children, her family's respect, the small dignity she'd managed to preserve through 7 years of erasure, all gone. At 5 p.m. on September 28th, 2023. Most people watching this will judge what happens next. They'll say she had options, that she could have gone to the police, could have run, could have done something different. But women who've been trapped in systems designed to break them, they understand. There are no good choices, only impossible ones. If this makes you uncomfortable, good. Truth should disturb us. Stay with me. Hiraya sat at that kitchen table for 2 hours. The children's cartoons playing in the next room, the timer counting down on her laptop screen. She had 96 hours, 4 days, to decide. Let him destroy her slowly, piece by piece, for however long he wanted, or make him disappear. September 28, 2023, 1:45 p.m. The children were at their swimming lesson. They'd be gone until 4. Hiraya had sent them with Rosa, who'd agreed to keep them occupied afterward, get them ice cream, take them to the park, give Hiraya time. She didn't know what she was going to do, only that she needed time. The doorbell rang 15 minutes early, a power move. He wanted her off balance. She opened the door. Declan walked in like he owned the place, laptop bag over his shoulder, that same confident smile she'd once found charming. Now it just looked predatory. He set his laptop on the coffee table, opened it. The insurance folder was already visible on the screen. 47 files. 3 months of her life reduced to ammunition. He sat down on the couch, relaxed, like they were about to discuss weekend plans. Here's how this works. I'm not unreasonable. I just want things back to how they were. You and me. No more drama. Hiraya stood near the kitchen doorway. Her throat felt tight. I'll pay you anything. Please. He laughed, actually laughed. I told you I don't want money. He leaned back, spreading his arms across the back of the couch. Comfortable, in control. You chose this. You came to my apartment. You spread your legs willingly. This isn't me victimizing you. This is consequences. His face changed as he spoke, the mask slipping. She could see something underneath now. Entitlement. Wounded pride. The rage of someone who'd been told no. Women like you think you can just walk away. Priya did the same thing. That Moroccan bitch from Tower A used me, dumped me like I was nothing. Not this time. He stood up, started walking toward her. Slowly, deliberately. Hiraya backed up, felt the kitchen counter behind her. You're mine, Hiraya. The sooner you accept that, the easier this gets. Her hand touched the knife block. What happened next took less than 3 minutes. But those 3 minutes would define the rest of Hiraya's life. According to the police report filed later that day, Declan Castellano sustained 17 stab wounds. The medical examiner would determine that the first wound was defensive, to his hand as he reached toward her. The rest came in rapid succession. Hiraya would later tell investigators she doesn't remember most of it. Trauma does that. The brain protects itself by erasing what it can't process. What she does remember is fragments, the sound of him falling, the realization of what she'd done, the silence that followed. She found herself sitting on the kitchen floor, the knife beside her, Declan's body a few feet away, the laptop still open on the coffee table, the insurance folder still glowing with those 47 files that had controlled her life for weeks. Her hands were shaking. She looked at them, at the evidence of what had just happened, and felt completely disconnected from her own body, like she was watching someone else's life fall apart. She needed to call someone. The thought came slowly, through the fog. She reached for her phone, dialed 999, the emergency number in the UAE. The operator answered. Professional, calm, speaking in English. Hiraya opened her mouth. Nothing came out in English. Her mind had switched completely. All she had left was Tagalog. Pulis. Kailangan ko ng pulis. May patay. Ako ang pumatay. Police. I need police. Someone is dead. I killed him. The operator asked for her address, told her to stay where she was. Stay on the line. Help was coming. Hiraya sat there, phone pressed to her ear, trying to process what had just happened. What she'd just done. The choice she'd made when she felt she had no choices left. Dubai police would arrive 12 minutes later. They'd find Declan Castellano, 23 years old, dead from multiple stab wounds. They'd find Hiraya sitting on the floor, still holding the phone, in shock. They'd secure the scene, photograph everything, take her into custody. Within an hour, they'd examine the laptop, find the insurance folder, discover the automated email set to send at 5 p.m., understand what he'd been doing to her, but they'd also examine her phone, and in her search history, they'd find searches from the previous week that told a different story. Fatal knife wounds diagram. September 19th. How much blood from chest wound? September 20th. Can surveillance cameras see kitchen windows? September 22nd. Evidence that suggested this wasn't a spontaneous act of self-defense, that she'd been thinking about this, planning it, preparing for it. And in UAE law, that distinction matters. The difference between self-defense and premeditated murder, between sympathy and prosecution, between understanding and punishment. Hiraya had killed her blackmailer, but the evidence suggested she'd been planning to kill him for days. The question prosecutors would soon ask, was this a trapped woman fighting back, or a calculated murderer who'd researched how to get away with it? The answer would determine whether she'd spend the rest of her life in prison. Dubai police arrived at apartment 1703 at 2:04 p.m. They found Hiraya sitting on the kitchen floor, non-responsive, phone still in her hand. Declan's body lay in the living room. Lead investigator detective Rashid Khalfan secured the scene immediately. Forensic teams arrived within 20 minutes. What they found would build the prosecution's case piece by piece. The laptop on the coffee table was still open. Detective Khalfan examined it carefully, documenting everything. The insurance folder, 47 explicit files, an email template addressed to multiple recipients, and the timer application, frozen at 3 hours and 13 minutes before its scheduled send time. The blackmail evidence was undeniable. Declan Castellano had been systematically threatening Hiraya Bassa with public exposure. That much was clear. But then forensics extracted Hiraya's phone. Her search history told a different story. September 19th. Fatal knife wounds diagram. September 20th. How much blood from chest wound? September 22nd. Can surveillance cameras see kitchen windows? Searches that indicated premeditation, planning, intent. The text messages complicated things further. Months of exchanges between Hiraya and Declan. Early messages were romantic, affectionate. I love you. July 2nd. I wish I could leave, Sami. July 15th. You're the only good thing in my life. August 1st. These weren't the messages of a victim. They were the messages of someone having an affair. Someone who, at least initially, had wanted this relationship. The forensic team photographed the scene meticulously, measured distances, documented the location of every piece of evidence. The knife, the pattern of defensive wounds on Declan's hands, the number and location of stab wounds, 17 total, most to the chest and throat, far more than necessary to stop a threat. The evidence painted a complicated picture. Yes, Declan had been blackmailing her. But yes, She had also been planning something. The question was what came first, the plan to kill him, or the blackmail that might have justified it. September 29th, 3:12 a.m. Hiraya was formally arrested. The charges: premeditated murder and adultery under UAE federal law. In the United Arab Emirates, premeditated murder carries the possibility of capital punishment. Adultery, while also a criminal offense, typically results in imprisonment and deportation. Together, the charges meant Hiraya was facing either execution or decades in prison. By sunrise, the story had spread. International media picked it up within hours. British tabloids ran with their angle. The Daily Mail: British photographer murdered by desperate housewife in Dubai love triangle. The Sun: toy boy, 23, stabbed 17 times by married lover, 34, after affair turns deadly. The narrative they constructed was clear. Obsessed older woman kills young man who tried to end their affair. Filipino media told a different story. ABS-CBN News: OFW mother faces death penalty after Dubai nightmare. The Philippine Star: Filipina housewife accused of murder was being blackmailed, evidence shows. Their coverage emphasized the kafala system, the power imbalance, the blackmail. They framed Hiraya as a victim who'd been pushed too far. Both versions were true. Neither was complete. September 30th, Sami al-Zahari filed for divorce. His lawyer submitted the paperwork to Dubai Family Court within 48 hours of the arrest. The petition included immediate custody of both children, Amira, 6, and Zain, 4, citing his wife's criminal charges and moral unfitness as a parent. Under UAE law, custody disputes are resolved based on the best interests of the child. When one parent is charged with murder and adultery, the outcome is predetermined. The court granted Sami full custody that same day. Emergency order: no visitation rights for Hiraya pending trial outcome. She was informed while still in police detention. Her lawyer delivered the news. She'd lost her children. Legally. Permanently. Amira and Zain were told their mother had to go away for a while. They didn't understand why. Sami's mother, Latifa, moved into the apartment to help care for them. Within a week, they'd stopped asking when Mama was coming home. Hiraya would never see them again. Not at the police station. Not during the trial. Not during the 3 years she'd spend in Alawir Women's Prison after sentencing. The investigation wrapped up in 11 days. Forensics had everything they needed: the murder weapon, the search history, the text messages, the blackmail evidence, all of it documented, photographed, cataloged. The case would go to trial in 6 weeks. Prosecution was confident. They had premeditation. They had intent. They had 17 stab wounds. What they also had, but weren't sure how to weigh, was a woman who'd been systematically trapped by 2 different men. One who controlled her legally, another who controlled her through fear. The question for the court would be, does that matter? Does understanding why someone commits murder change whether they should be punished for it? Dubai's legal system was about to answer that question. November 14th, 2003. Dubai Courts Complex. The trial of Hiraya Bassa began 47 days after she killed Declan Castellano. The courtroom was packed. International media, Filipino community advocates, British consular officials. Declan's family had flown in from London. Sami sat in the back row with his mother, expressionless. Hiraya entered in prison clothing, hands cuffed. She'd lost weight. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked diminished. The prosecution was led by Deputy Prosecutor Nadia Al-Mansouri, a 15-year veteran known for being thorough and effective. Her opening statement was devastating. This is not a case about a trapped woman fighting for survival. This is about a woman who engaged in an extramarital affair, planned a murder when that affair became inconvenient, and executed that plan with calculated precision. The evidence will show Hiraya Basa researched how to kill. She prepared, she waited, and then she stabbed Declan Castellano 17 times. Not once, not twice, 17 times. That is not self-defense. That is murder. Over 3 days, Al-Mansouri built her case methodically. Day 1 focused on the affair. Text messages between Hiraya and Declan were entered into evidence and read aloud. I love you, July 2nd. I wish I could leave Sami. July 15th. You're the only good thing in my life. August 1st. The messages painted a consensual relationship, a woman who wasn't just having an affair, but was emotionally invested in it. Day 2 introduced the premeditation evidence. Hiraya's search history, recovered by forensic experts, was displayed on courtroom screens. September 19th, fatal knife wounds diagram. September 20th, how much blood from chest wound. September 22nd, can surveillance cameras see kitchen windows? September 24th, cleaning blood from marble floor. Al-Mansouri let each search sit in the air, building the narrative, showing intent. These are not the searches of someone acting in self-defense. These are the searches of someone planning a murder. The forensic medical examiner testified next. 17 total wounds, 8 to the chest, 5 to the throat, 4 defensive wounds to the hands. The number and location of wounds indicate sustained attack. The victim would have been incapacitated after the first 3 to 4 chest wounds. The remaining wounds were inflicted after the threat was neutralized. Translation: she kept stabbing him after he was already dying. Day 3 was Hiraya's cross-examination. Her lawyer, James Whitmore, had advised her not to testify, but Hiraya insisted. She wanted to explain. It was a mistake. Al-Mansouri started gentle, asked about Hiraya's background, her family, her children. Then she shifted. Mrs. Basa, was the relationship with Mr. Castellano consensual? In the beginning I thought, yes or no. Was it consensual? Silence. We have your text messages. Messages where you tell him you love him. Were those sent under duress? No, but, so you did love him. Hiraya's voice was barely audible. Yes. You wanted to be with him? At first, yes. You planned to leave your husband for him? A pause. I thought about it. Al-Mansouri let that admission hang in the courtroom. So this wasn't a victim escaping her attacker. This was a woman in love who changed her mind. Correct? It's more complicated. Yes or no, Mrs. Basa? Yes. The prosecutor moved to the searches. You searched for fatal knife wounds diagram 9 days before the murder. Why? I was scared. I didn't know what to do. Were you planning to kill him? I don't know. I was desperate. Were you researching how to kill Declan Castellano? Yes or no? Tears streamed down Hiraya's face. I didn't have a choice. You had many choices, Mrs. Basa. You could have gone to the police. You could have sought legal help. Instead, you chose to research how to commit murder. And then you did it. By the time Al-Mansouri finished, Hiraya was sobbing. Her testimony had done more damage than the prosecution's evidence. Day 4 brought Declan's parents. Vanessa Castellano took the stand holding photographs. His mother, 58 years old. Grief carved into every line of her face. She presented photos to the court. Declan as a baby, as a child, graduating university. Each image a reminder that he wasn't just a blackmailer. He was someone's son. When she spoke, her voice was steady, My son made mistakes. I won't pretend he didn't. But he didn't deserve to die. She murdered my only child because he wouldn't be her escape plan. She's not a victim. She's a killer who took my son from me. The courtroom was silent. By the end of day 4, even James Whitmore looked defeated. The evidence was overwhelming. The search history. The messages. 17 stab wounds. The verdict seemed inevitable. Day 5. The defense began its case. James Whitmore's strategy was clear. He couldn't deny the killing. The evidence was irrefutable. Instead, he needed to explain why it happened, to show the system that had created the conditions for this tragedy. His first witness was Rosa Delgado. Rosa took the stand in her day-off clothes, speaking through a Tagalog interpreter. She'd worked in Dubai for 19 years. She knew how the system worked. Whitmore asked her to explain the kafala sponsorship system to the court, how it functions, what it means for women like Hiraya. Your employer or your husband holds your visa, Rosa explained. They control whether you can work, whether you can leave the country, whether you exist legally. If you make them angry, if you embarrass them, they can cancel your visa. You have 24 hours to leave the country or you become illegal. Your passport, your freedom, none of it belongs to you. She testified about 2 other women in their building, both Filipina. Both had been targeted by Western expat men who photographed them, blackmailed them, knew these women couldn't go to the police without risking deportation or adultery charges. These men choose us because they know we have no protection, Rosa said. They know the system makes us vulnerable, and they use that. Next came the digital forensics expert. He presented Declan's Reddit account to the court. The posts were displayed on the courtroom screens for everyone to see. Dubai filmmaker 23, March 2023. Successfully seduced another one. MILF, Indian, married. They're so easy when they're lonely. Tip, act sensitive. Ask about their culture, take artsy photos, works every time. August 2023. New target acquired. Filipina this time, early 30s. Same playbook. These older immigrant wives are basically asking for it. The expert explained that Declan had been documenting his pattern of targeting vulnerable married immigrant women, not just Hiraya, multiple women over several years. The forensic psychologist testified next. Dr. Layla Hassan, a trauma specialist who'd evaluated Hiraya. She explained coercive control, how it differs from physical force, how someone can be trapped without visible chains. When you combine legal powerlessness with intimate partner coercion and blackmail, you create what we call trapped animal syndrome. All exits are blocked. The brain stops seeing options. It sees only survival or destruction. But Basa genuinely believed she had no legal recourse. And given the kafala system and UAE adultery laws, she was partially correct. Then Hiraya took the stand again. This time, she was calmer. No tears. Whitmore had coached her, told her to speak plainly, to explain her thinking. I knew if I went to the police, they'd charge me with adultery, she said. I knew if I told my husband, he'd take my children. I knew Declan would never stop because he'd done this before to other women and faced no consequences. Whitmore asked the key question. Mrs. Basa, in your mind on September 28th, what options did you have? She looked directly at the judges. None. Every choice led to losing my children. Every choice led to my life being destroyed. So tell me, Your Honor, what legal remedy did I have? The courtroom went quiet. Closing arguments took 2 hours. Al-Mansouri maintained that premeditation negated sympathy. Whitmore argued that systemic failure created impossible choices. The judges deliberated for 6 days. December 2nd, 2023. The verdict. The courtroom was packed again. Hiraya stood as the lead judge. Judge Khalid Al-Mahmoud read the decision. The court finds the defendant guilty of manslaughter, not premeditated murder. We recognize that systemic vulnerabilities and psychological coercion contributed to the defendant's state of mind. However, the law is clear. There were legal remedies available. The defendant chose violence instead of pursuing those remedies. Sentencing: 15 years imprisonment at Al-Awir, women's prison. Adultery charges dropped. It was a partial victory, not the death penalty, not life in prison, but 15 years. Hiraya stood silently as the sentence was read. Then, before the guards could escort her out, she spoke. What remedies? The law that made me property, or the law punishing me for refusing to stay that way? Judge Al-Mahmoud looked at her for a long moment. Then he closed the file. This court is adjourned. Hiraya was led away in handcuffs. 15 years. She'd be 51 when released. Her children would be 21 and 19. Adults who wouldn't remember her. The verdict made international headlines within hours. Some called it justice. Others called it a failure of the system to protect vulnerable women. Both were true. 2 years later, Al-Awir Women's Prison, Dubai, 2025. Hiraya Basa is 36 years old. She works in the prison laundry, shares a cell with 2 other women. Follows the routine, because routine is all she has left. Outside these walls, life continued without her. Sami remarried 6 months after the divorce was finalized. A Moroccan woman, 10 years younger than Hiraya. She moved into the apartment, sleeps in the bed Hiraya once slept in, raises the children Hiraya gave birth to. Amira and Zain were told their mother went away. They don't visit. Sami never brings them. After the first year, they stopped asking about her. February 2024, Hiraya received news from her sister in Manila. Their mother had died. Heart failure, complications from the kidney disease. The disease Hiraya couldn't help treat because she'd had no money, no access, no freedom. Hiraya requested permission to attend the funeral. The request was denied. She's serving a sentence for manslaughter. Compassionate leave doesn't apply. But her case didn't disappear quietly. International human rights organizations made her a symbol. Amnesty International cited her case in reports on migrant worker rights. UN Women referenced her story in documentation about the kafala system. Filipina advocacy networks rallied around her, raised money for appeals, kept her name in the news. She became larger than herself. A case study, a cautionary tale, a rallying cry for reform. Inside her cell, though, she's just a mother who lost everything. Above her bunk, she's pinned 2 images to the concrete wall. The first, a photo of Amira and Zain from the day of her arrest. Ages 6 and 4. Amira holding her little brother's hand, both looking confused. Below it, a newspaper clipping from last month. A school event. Amira is 8 now. Zain is 6. They're standing with Sami and his new wife, all 4 of them smiling. A family. They look happy. They've moved on. Hiraya traces their faces with her finger, then picks up a pen and paper, begins writing, like she does every week. Dear Amira and Zain, today you turned 8 and 6. I wonder if you remember my voice. I wonder if you hate me or don't think of me at all. I killed a man so I wouldn't lose you, and I lost you anyway. Was it worth it? I don't know, but I'd make the same choice because the alternative was worse. Someday, read about the kafala system. Read what happens to women with no exits. Then decide if your mother was a monster or just a woman who fought back the only way she knew. I love you. I have never stopped. Mama. She folds the letter carefully, adds it to a cardboard box under her bed. Opens the box to place it inside. 473 letters, one for every week since her arrest. The label on the box, written in Tagalog, Para sa mga anak ko, for my children. Letters they'll never read. On September 28, 2023, Declan Castellano died on a kitchen floor in Dubai. But the real killer wasn't Hiraya Basa's knife. It was a system that turned women into property, sealed every exit, then called them criminals when they broke through walls instead of doors. Hiraya will spend 15 years in prison. Declan is buried in London. His parents grieve. Her children grow up motherless. And the kafala system continues, trapping the next generation of women who'll face the same impossible choice. Disappear or fight back, knowing you'll be destroyed either way. The law says Hiraya is guilty. But who really committed murder that day? Thank you for watching. These aren't just crime stories. They're about power, survival, and the choices people make when justice fails. Subscribe if you believe some truths need telling, even when they're uncomfortable. Share this with someone who needs to understand that sometimes the real crime isn't the one that gets punished. Sometimes understanding is the only justice we can offer.